Everyone, please be seated. And defense, it was your cross-examination. You may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. And in fact, isn't it true that you grabbed the security officer?
A la gente de seguridad, ¿se lo agarró?
No,
No,
And isn't it true that you punched the security officer multiple times?
varias veces.
nunca lo golpeé.
I never hit him.
If witnesses saw you punching the security officer, you disagree with that?
¿Usted discutiría eso?
No, porque pues yo no les hice nada.
Well, I didn't do anything to him.
Okay, but my question is, if witnesses testify that they saw you punching the security officer, you disagree with that?
¿Usted está en desacuerdo con eso?
Estoy de desacuerdo porque no hice nada.
I disagree. I didn't do anything.
And at some point, you ended up on the ground, and at some point, you were on top of the security officer.
Encima del guardia de seguridad.
Él estaba arriba de mí.
He was on top of me.
But prior to him being on top of you, there was a time when you were on top of him, correct?
De que no estuviera encima de usted, usted estuvo encima de él.
No, me puso en el piso todo el tiempo.
No, he put me on the floor all the time.
And during this period of time,
Este momento.
Tina was grabbing the security officer as well, correct?
También, correcto.
De eso no me miré porque pasó de repente.
That I wasn't aware of because it happened so quickly.
Okay. But we see Tina in the video approaching close to the security officer, correct?
No miré.
No, I did not see that.
Okay, so we play the video again?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
who's the man in the white shirt? That's actually Esmeralda, correct?
El hombre de la camisa blanca, ese es Esmeralda, ¿cierto?
In the black shorts?
La falda negra.
Sí.
Yes.
Okay. And who is this person that's holding Esmeralda back?
I don't know, Esmeralda, lo está reteniendo. ¿Quién es?
Mi sobrino, Carlos.
My nephew, Carlos.
And the reason Carlos is holding Esmeralda back is because she's getting involved with the fight, correct?
Que se está involucrando en la pelea, ¿cierto?
¿Quién, Carlos?
¿Tú, Carlos?
No, Esmeralda is getting involved in the fight and Carlos is trying to pull her away.
Y
Correct.
está tratando de retroceder.
Judge.
Sí,
Yes,
es cierto.
that's true.
I'm
Just
gonna-
one second.
Sorry, object to speculation.
He's testifying, he was there.
Oh, you
He
can
also-
remain seated, counsel.
Okay, sorry. He was there, he saw the video, he's the one that sponsored this video saying it's an accurate depiction of.
All right, with regards to the last question about what he believes the other person is doing, the objection to speculation will be sustained.
We, at some point, the security officer was stripped of his radio. Isn't it true that you and the people with you stripped the security officer of his radio?
No, yo no me di cuenta, yo no sé nada.
No, I was not aware of that. I don't know anything.
The officer was also stripped of his baton. Are you aware of that?
Quitaron su batón.
No sé, yo no eso.
No, I do not know anything about that.
In fact, when you left, you were actually being escorted by multiple security officers, correct?
Escoltado por varios guardias de seguridad, correcto.
No, salí solo
No, I
Con mis-
walked out alone
con mi esposa y con Carlos y esta Esmeralda,
with my wife, Carlos, and this Esmeralda,
solos.
alone.
And you're saying there were not security officers with you at that
Está diciendo que
time.
no había guardia de seguridad con usted cuando salió.
No,
No,
Once you got outside, why didn't you talk to the police?
porque no habló usted con la policía.
no, pues ella fue cuando ellos hablaron y ya, pues ellos hablaron a la policía para hacer el reporte.
No, it was they that called the police to make the police report.
I understand, but you're here telling us that you're the victim of a crime, correct?
No hay delito, ¿cierto?
Sí, pero ellos fueron los que hablaron.
Yes, but they were the ones that called.
I understand whether they were called, but if you're telling us that you're the victim of a crime, why wouldn't you report that crime to the police? Why wouldn't you want to talk to the police and tell them that you were the victim of a crime?
Le reporté eso a la policía y le dijo a la policía que usted fue víctima del delito.
Porque ya cuando llegué, cuando llegué afuera ya están hablando a la policía, esta Esperanza.
Because when I got outside, they were already calling the police. Esperanza was.
Well, I understand,
Entiendo.
but let me back up.
Déjeme terminar
if officers that were there said that everyone in your party was highly intoxicated, do you disagree with that?
Yo no estaba ebrio.
I was not intoxicated,
What about the others in your party? Carlos, Esmeralda, and Tina?
neither.
Okay, so you're there on scene, right? The police are right over there talking to Esmeralda and Tina, and you don't even approach to go talk with that police officer and tell them what happened, correct?
Sí, porque pues ellos estaban hablando ya con ellos, dije, pues ellos van a hacer el reporte.
Yes, because they were already speaking to them, and I said, well, they're gonna do the report.
Yeah, but the bottom line is you're the person that was experiencing these things. You talking to the officer is important, don't you agree?
Sí, ya cuando llegué a mi casa, entonces hablé a la policía y yo hice el reporte.
Yes, when I got home, I called the police and made a report.
Well, they're right there in front of you. Why, they're right there at the scene. Why not go talk to them while they're there?
No sé, estaba en pánico yo.
No, I don't know, I was in a panic mode.
And part of the reason you were in a panic mode is because you just assaulted a security officer, correct? And you were concerned that you would be arrested.
No, yo no pregunté a nadie.
No, I did not hit anybody.
Nadie.
Nobody.
Well, then why not go and tell your story to the police that are sitting right next to you?
Ellos nomás hicieron el reporte y no quisieron hablar con nadie de nosotros.
They just made the report and they didn't want to speak to any of us.
But you saw them actually speaking. They actually
Sí los,
spoke to
sí los
people.
miré, pero yo no
when
les
they
dije nada
arrived
a
at the
ellos.
scene.
Yes, I did see them, but I did not say anything to them.
Well, I guess I'm not understanding why you're not saying something to them. If you're a person that's saying that you were assaulted and they're standing right there, why wouldn't you address it unless you had concerns that you might ended up being arrested?
Yo no estaba ocupado por ser arrestado.
I was not afraid of being arrested.
No, pues yo no hice nada.
No, I didn't do anything.
I'll pass it.
All right, state.
No further questions, Judge.
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Subject to recall, Your Honor.
All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone except for attorneys for the state and attorneys for the defense. You may be recalled as a witness, so make sure that you're available. Do you understand?
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you.
You want me to try to be excused?
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. Oh, make sure you leave the mic behind. State, call your next witness.
The state calls Dr. Mark Guntz.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that members of the jury can hear. State, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Dr. Guntz, can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Mark Guntz.
And how are you? I'm going to ask you to speak into the microphone that's in front of you.
Sorry.
Thank you. How are you presently employed?
I work for Tenet Healthcare. I'm a surgeon.
Okay. How long have you been a surgeon?
Almost 20 years.
Okay, what is your educational background?
I went to medical school at Texas Tech for 4 years. I did a general surgery residency for 5 years, and that was followed by a fellowship in trauma and critical care.
Okay. And are you licensed to practice medicine in Texas?
Yes,
And have you been licensed, you said about 20 years?
correct.
Okay. And as a surgeon, what does your practice consist of?
Mainly right now, general surgery. Most of it in the past was trauma and acute care surgery.
Okay. During the course of your duties as a medical doctor, have you examined and treated individuals with injuries?
Yes,
Has this been on few or many occasions?
many occasions.
Okay. And prior to your employment now, where were you employed?
I was a trauma surgeon for 13 years in the Air Force. And following that, I worked at various level 1 trauma centers.
Okay. In August of 2023, do you recall where you were working at the time?
North Central Baptist.
Okay. And I guess just in your duties, what type of injuries do you normally see and deal with?
basically seeing the entire spectrum of blunt force injuries and penetrating injuries and blast injuries.
Okay. Now, back in August of 2023, did you examine and treat Pablo Rodriguez?
Yes.
And when and where did this occur?
I'm sorry.
When and where did this examination occur?
It was in August of 23, like you said, and it was at North Central Baptist Hospital.
Okay. Did you document any injuries that you observed on him? Or let me rephrase my question. How did he come into your care, if you recall?
So he was transferred from St. Luke's Hospital, which is not a trauma center. We are a level 3 trauma center, and he was transferred for that reason. He had been there a couple of days before, and they had diagnosed him with a orbital wall fracture, an eye socket fracture. And he went back there a couple of days later with abdominal pain, and that's when they were concerned about a perforated viscus, perforated intestine.
Okay. And once he came into your care, what steps did you take to treat him?
I looked at his CAT scan before they sent him over, so he basically went straight to surgery.
Okay, when you observed the CAT scan, what did you observe in the CAT scan?
The most telling sign was air outside of the intestines that should not be there, which typically indicates a perforated viscus.
Do you know what could be a cause of that?
There's many causes of it.
Is that consistent with some type of like trauma induced on the body?
Blunt force injuries to the abdomen can cause perforations, yes.
Okay. And so I guess, can you describe when you took him to surgery, what steps did you have to take to repair that injury?
So I opened his abdomen, and then I, for our trauma laparotomy protocol, did a thorough stepwise examination of the abdomen. And when I got down to his sigmoid colon, which is the toward the end of the large intestine, there was a defect in, it's called the mesentery, which carries the blood vessels out to the intestine itself. There was basically a big hole in that, and just on that in that segment there was a perforation of the sigmoid colon. And so in order to sometimes you can repair those. In his particular case, I didn't think it was wise to try and repair it, so I had to remove that segment of his intestine.
Okay. Did Pablo Rodriguez describe to you how and when these injuries were inflicted on him, if you recall?
He told me that he was in an altercation. It was a blunt assault. He didn't remember a lot of the details about it, but I believe it was a couple of days before I initially met him.
Okay. And after you performed the surgery on him, did you have to do any follow-up treatment?
So he was in the hospital for several days after surgery and was discharged home. He came back in, I can't remember exactly how long. It was roughly 2 weeks after the initial operation with a bowel obstruction, high-grade bowel obstruction, and that did require another operation.
And what did that, are bowel obstructions common or consistent with the the intestinal issue?
So typically bowel obstructions are the result of prior surgeries.
Oh.
They're from scar tissue. We call them adhesions, basically scar tissue that forms after any surgery that you do. You can have a bowel obstruction from a traumatic injury as well, but his were due to the adhesions from the original surgery 2 weeks prior.
Okay. And then after, what did that surgery consist of?
So in addition to that, he had it's called a fascial dehiscence, where the muscle separates because he was very distended. When you have a bowel obstruction, the bowel swells up and there's a lot of pressure on the inside of the abdomen, so that puts stress on the stitches. So the stitches pulled through the fascia, which is basically the muscle that closes the abdomen, and so that had come apart. So I repaired that. I basically opened the incision, went back into his abdomen and explored him again. There was a cleared area that was obstructed by a piece of scar tissue.
Okay. And so Knowing all of that, what was Mr. Rodriguez's prognosis?
The prognosis.
Was it just the bowel obstruction and then the part of the intestine that you had to remove?
Correct. So, right. So the second operation was for the bowel obstruction and due to all the adhesions and repairing the fascial dehiscence. His prognosis was, fine after that. He did fairly well. He was in the hospital for a few days later. I left his skin open, so we had to let his wound heal from the inside out, which took several weeks.
Okay.
The records, yes.
And what are those records and where are they from?
These records are from St. Luke's Hospital, the original hospital that he went to.
And did you review those in treating the patient in this case?
I spoke with the ER doctor and I reviewed the CAT scans and labs and did read the ER note as well, yes.
Then I'm going to show you what's been marked as states 11 through 13. If you could take a look at these and tell me if you recognize what's depicted in those.
Yes.
Okay. And are those fair and accurate depictions of Mr. Rodriguez and then yourself?
Correct.
I'm tendering states 10 through 13 to defense for inspection and offering the same.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Judge, I have no objection to states 10. I do object to states 11 and 12, and I'd like to take that up outside the presence of the jury.
All right. Could I see, so State's Exhibit number 10, no objection?
No objection to 10, Your Honor.
All right, State's Exhibit number 10 will be admitted without objection. And then you say the other three, you do have
No
objection?
objection to states 13.
All right, State's Exhibit 13 will be admitted without objection. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to have you stand in the hallway. Remember my previous instructions. Everyone, please rise for the jurors. Everyone, please be seated. All right, so defense. So with regards to State's Exhibit 11 and 12 that you have objections to, are either of those photographs included in State's Exhibit number 10?
No, Your Honor.
All right, and are either of those photographs the same as State's Exhibit 13?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so I'll hear your objections.
My objection to states exhibit number 11 and 12 are that these are the result of a medical procedure that occurred. They're obviously disturbing photos because it's the aftermath of a surgery. I don't believe that adds to any. I don't think that it adds any weight to the issue of whether there was serious bodily injury. I do feel that they are highly inflammatory and that there is a danger of undue prejudice. I would ask the court to take analysis under basically to analyze the probative value that we get versus the danger of unfair prejudice. And I feel that the danger of unfair prejudice outweighs the probative value of the photographs, in that they're obviously highly disturbing photographs of someone on a post-surgical basis. The fact that there are these photographs does nothing to advance the state's case that there was serious bodily injury. It does nothing to advance the case further, other than these are some gross pictures that we took after the surgery. They are highly prejudicial, and therefore I'd ask that states, I think it's states 10 and 11, no, 11 and 12, I'm sorry, be excluded.
Are you, and I'm just asking this based upon part of your earlier argument, are you stipulating that the complainant suffered serious bodily injury?
Well, I believe that there was a serious bodily injury. Whether what Mr. Rendon did was the cause of that, I dispute the fact that that is necessarily the causation issue. But I don't believe there's any doubt that he had a serious bodily injury. Whether what
Well,
Mr. Rendon was the cause of it, I guess, is the question.
all right, so the state has a part of their evidence that they have to prove from the indictment is that there was serious bodily injury. And defense, you stated that these photos are not in State's Exhibits 10 or 13, correct?
That's correct here.
All right. State?
The state's response is that the photos are more probative than prejudicial. The doctor has testified that the reason that he had to leave the area open is due to some scar tissue that caused the bowel obstruction from the previous surgery. And so I believe that it would be probative to the jury as the fact finder to be able to see the photos and to aid in the doctor's testimony.
My response to that, Judge, is that they're photos of the surgical procedure, not the actual event that occurred. You know, sometimes obviously when they're trying to help somebody, they have to, you know, do certain things to the body. But it doesn't go to advance whether the fact that there is bodily injury. I think serious bodily injury. I think the medical records have been admitted into evidence. You have the testimony of the doctor, who's an expert witness. He can testify that it's serious bodily injury. So at this point, the probative value is very low because those are the two strongest pieces of evidence. But the prejudicial value is high because it's the results of the surgery, not the results of you know, I mean, I guess.
But doesn't it say that if serious bodily injury isn't part of the definition, permanent disfigurement?
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
All right. All right. The court is doing a balancing test. The court is going to find that State's Exhibits numbers 11 and 12 are more probative than prejudicial. Is there anything else?
No, Your Honor.
No, Judge.
All right, so States 11 and number 12 will be admitted, and I'll make that announcement that they're being admitted in front of the jury. Are they ready? All right, so they took a short break. Does anyone need a restroom break? Okay. Okay,
You know, one thing I learned in the Army is if you get a chance to eat.
and 12 are admitted. State, you may continue.
Permission to publish, Your Honor.
Granted.
All right, Dr. Dunst, can you please explain to the jury what is depicted in State's Exhibit number 11?
So this is a photo after the second operation. And when I finished that operation, the last step is either to close the skin or to leave it open. In this particular case, I was concerned that if I closed the skin again, that he would develop a wound infection, which would put him at risk of another dehiscence where the muscle came apart again. And so I elected to leave it open. I felt that was the safest way to treat this wound. So that is just the skin and the subcutaneous tissue after the fascia was closed.
And in State's Exhibit number 12, what is depicted?
This is after his wound had completely healed in.
And what is depicted in State's Exhibit number 13?
That, I believe, is his last visit. I think he was just happy he didn't have to come see me anymore.
Now, are you generally familiar with the legal definition of serious bodily injury?
Yes,
And is it your understanding that serious bodily injury means bodily injury that creates a substantial risk of death or that causes death or serious permanent disfigurement or protracted loss or impairment of the function of any bodily member or organ?
yes.
And keeping that definition in mind, do you have an opinion as to whether or not the injuries inflicted on Pablo Rodriguez constituted serious bodily injury?
Yes, I do.
And what is that opinion?
My opinion is that he sustained serious bodily injury based on the injuries.
Now I'm going to show you on the screen what has been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit number 2. If you could have a look. Now, regarding what we just saw in State's Exhibit number 2, could that be consistent with blunt force trauma that would inflict the intestinal injury?
Sorry, it was a glare at the beginning of that on this screen,
All
but
right. If you need to rewatch it on that.
please. Can you repeat your question, please?
Yes, so regarding what we just saw exhibited in State's Exhibit number 2, could that knee, in the abdomen be considered blunt force trauma that would be consistent with the serious bodily injury sustained by Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
We pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, defense, you may proceed.
Yes, thank you, doctor. My name is Larry Bloomquist. I represent Mariano Rendon in this case. When we're looking at these ruptured large intestines, is that a layman's kind of term for what occurred here?
Yes, sir.
And in that, there's multiple things that can cause that other than blunt force trauma, correct?
Correct.
So one would be like penetrating trauma.
Correct.
So like a stab wound to the area. Have there ever been, another one might be surgical procedure. So we talked about like one of the impacts, like in that second photograph we saw was kind of gross, the open photo. That was kind of a result of some surgical scarring, I guess, that was, kind of a natural occurring thing that happens after a surgery.
Well, the open wound that you saw was just my decision to not close the skin because I was concerned that he would develop a wound infection. And so when there's high enough concern for that, you leave the skin open and you let the wound heal from the bottom up.
But the fact that you had to do the second surgery was because it was like a complication from the first surgery.
Correct.
The scar tissue that formed
Yes.
in the first surgery. Had Mr. Rodriguez ever had any history of having any kind of surgery in that area before?
I believe he did have, he had his appendix removed, if I'm not mistaken.
And is it possible that during the surgery to remove the appendix, there might have been some injury that could have caused this?
Could have caused what, sir?
Could have caused the rupture at a later time? Could there have been scar tissue from that surgery?
I wouldn't think so.
Another cause could be inflammation, correct?
Correct.
And describe that. So like if someone were to get an infection that would inflame their intestine, that could cause a rupture?
Correct. The most common reason would be diverticulitis in that particular area of the intestine.
And another reason would be like an appendicitis that we discussed, correct?
Not in that particular area of the intestine, but yes, appendicitis can rupture, but I believe that it had his appendix removed already.
Okay, but that would be in a different location
Yes,
than
sir.
this one. So we can rule that one out, correct? Okay. Another one would be like inflammatory bowel syndrome. Is there any history of that with Mr. Rodriguez?
Not that I know of.
But if there was, is it possible that that's something you may not know going into this?
Certainly possible.
Okay, so had Mr. Rodriguez had that condition or maybe an undiagnosed condition that could cause this as well?
It can cause a perforation, yes.
Another one would be peptic ulcers. Is that something that can cause this kind of a rupture?
Peptic ulcers occur in the stomach and first part of the small intestine, so not in this area.
Not in this area.
But yes, they can cause a rupture.
What about like long-term use of NSAIDs? And can you describe what NSAIDs are, medicines?
Ibuprofen, Motrin, Advil, aspirin, those types of medications.
And so long-term use of those, can that also cause a rupture?
Commonly peptic ulcers.
Okay, so that kind of causes the peptic ulcer, which then, so we can kind of rule that one out.
Correct.
And then another one is a bowel obstruction. Are there times when people get bowel obstructions for other reasons?
Most commonly it's from scar tissue. Yes, you can have bowel obstructions from other causes.
And then colonoscopies, is that another thing that can cause a bowel obstruction? Not a bowel obstruction, a rupture.
It can cause a rupture, but that's generally going to be immediately either during the procedure or discovered shortly after.
Sure, yeah. Okay. But I'm assuming that you feel that this injury was caused approach.
Yes.
And I just see the medical record.
There.
Now, initially you testified that he initially was seen at St. Luke's, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And that was on what day? Do you remember what day that was?
The original
Yes.
Visit was 2 days prior to when they transferred him over,
Okay.
roughly.
I'm gonna show you this, I'm gonna show you this page mark 5 of 9. You could review that. Does it also show that he had a hernia surgery?
Yes,
And when was the hernia surgery?
it doesn't say on this, in these records.
Okay. Would a surgery for hernia, is that something that could cause a bowel rupture?
It depends on the type of hernia that was repaired. There's many different types. Any surgery can cause a bowel rupture, but again, that's going to be very close to the time of surgery.
Right, but couldn't a surgery, for example, for a hernia at one point in time cause the buildup of scar tissue that at some later time creates a bowel obstruction?
Yes, sir.
And that bowel obstruction could rupture the intestine, correct?
The bowel obstruction typically doesn't rupture the intestine. What the obstruction is basically the intestine is kinked. So a piece of scar tissue acts like a band. I guess an example would be if you have a garden hose and you kink off the garden hose to stop the flow of water. That's functionally what a bowel obstruction is. So they typically don't rupture from a bowel obstruction. I guess it's possible, but typically a bowel obstruction is it's not going to rupture. They just don't improve, and that's why you need to take them to surgery sometimes.
I'll pass the witness at this time here.
All right, state.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, is this witness excused or subject to recall?
Excused by the state.
Excuse me.
All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone during the pendency of this trial. If you'll remove the microphone, and if you'll leave the exhibits with the court reporter. State, call your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, the state calls Tina Jimenez.
All right, if you'll raise your right hand for me, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you can lower your hand. Make sure you keep your voice up so that the members of the jury can hear.
Yes, I'm
And if you could put the microphone on.
on.
It's a square microphone.
I'll show her.
Okay, thank you.
I usually show them and I'm the one like that. This right. Just clip it onto your.
Oh,
That's what I have it on mine. Yeah, okay, got it.
all right, if you'll state your name for the record, please.
My name is Tina Linda Jimenez.
All right, state, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Jimenez, or Mrs. Jimenez, how do you know Pablo Rodriguez Salazar?
Pablo Rodriguez and I have been together going on 4 years. We live together. He's my partner.
And so you've known him for quite a number of years.
Yes,
You consider him, I guess,
my husband.
husband and wife,
Yes.
is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And let me ask you this. Where did y'all first meet?
We met at Volcan.
And is that also considered a Joe's volcano?
Yes, that is correct.
And why is it, or how is it that y'all met there?
Well, that's a place that I would feel comfortable going. I can't tell you that I was there all the time, but I went there frequently. And it was just a place that I just went to have a drink and a dance, and it happened that I met Pablo there.
And so you mentioned dance and have a drink. Do you enjoy dancing?
Pablo is a big dancer. He loves to dance. So I'm not a big drinker. Pablo's not a big drinker either. So we had that in common. We both like to dance, but Pablo likes to dance more than me. But Pablo is just a dancer, a happy person. That's just who
Okay.
he is.
And so Joe's Volcano was a place that had a dance floor, is that right?
Exactly. Yes, sir.
And just, was it country, Tejano music?
No, it was norteño. Cumbias norteño.
Okay, and so this is the place y'all met, and
Yes.
this is the place y'all well, probably up until this incident that you're here for today, y'all continue to go to this.
That was basically the only place we would go to. My apologies.
Okay. Well, let's go back to August 19th, 2023.
Mhm.
Does that, sorry, you got,
I'm sorry, I'm turning it off. I'm
turn
sorry.
your phone off, thank you. On August 19th, 2023, I guess, was that a special occasion?
Yes, it was Pablo's birthday.
And what did y'all end up doing that day?
We end up going to a dinner with my daughters. We had a dinner at Grand Tequila, and it's a restaurant, bar restaurant. And we went there for his birthday. We celebrated his birthday. We gave him his gifts there. My grandkids were there as well. We had dinner, and it was already a little late. And Pablo said, "Let's go to Volcan."
Okay.
And nothing out of the ordinary, you know. And I said, "Okay, let's go."
Okay, so
And-
let me stop you right there. I just want to make sure that I
Sure.
don't want to confuse the jury and make
Mhm,
sure that I'm not
absolutely.
confused. Botan is the same place as Joe's Volcano.
Right, Joe's
Okay,
Volcano,
It
yes.
goes, it's interchangeable names.
Yes,
Right, okay.
yes,
And so, again, this is a place where y'all met years prior,
exactly.
and at this particular night, let's talk about dinner. Did y'all have any drinks during dinner?
We had one margarita. He had one and I had one, and that was about it. Because we had our grandchildren, we had our children. It
Mhm.
was his birthday, you know, it was nothing. It was just the dinner, that was
Yeah.
it.
And as you just previously testified that y'all, Pablo wanted to go out and go to Joe's Volcano or
Joe's
Botan,
Volcano, right.
and did everybody go or?
No, just Pablo and I. Pablo and I, we were always go by ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, we would always go by ourselves. So it was very rare that we would go with somebody else, but it was mainly always Pablo and I.
And so you also stated earlier that it's sort of later.
Yes, it was already pretty late. I would say between 11:45, 12 midnight.
Okay, so almost midnight.
Yes,
So we're talking about August 19th going into the early morning
Right.
hours of August 20th.
correct,
And this is 2023.
correct.
And so did y'all make it to this Botan? Did you make it to that location?
Yes, we did.
And did y'all enter the location?
Yes, we did.
And did y'all, I guess, what did y'all do when y'all were there?
So we got there, and normally we just stand for a little bit. We just, you know, look at the surroundings and we stand there for a little bit. I would say about maybe 20, 30 minutes later, his nephew and the girlfriend got there
Mhm.
and went to where we were at. It just happened, this is a small place. So they saw us there, they went to where we were at. After that, Pablo went to go get a drink. And then we came back and then, of course, we danced, because Pablo loves to dance.
Okay. And so the dancing, can you just, is the dance floor just is like a square or how's
No,
the dance
it's
floor
a
formed?
circle.
A circle.
Mhm.
So it's like sort of
It goes around.
like a racetrack.
Yes.
Okay, that's the
yes.
easiest way to explain it,
Yes,
right? All
yeah.
right. So it's a rather decent sized club where there's other people there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
This particular night, do you recall how packed it was?
It was pretty packed.
Okay.
It was pretty packed, yes. It
Eh,
normally
eh.
gets pretty packed there.
And now you said you've at least gone to this place for at least several years. You've done.
Absolutely, yes.
And so did you know people that worked there?
I know the owner, JR. I've known that that's his wife. I've never met her,
Mhm.
but I've known that that's his wife. And then a son that's always there as well.
So you just pointed with the hand gesture towards the table to my left, and mentioned that you knew the owner, JR.
Yes.
Do you know that individual by another name also?
Medrano?
Okay.
Mario Medrano? No, I just know JR.
You know JR, you know him as JR,
Yes.
but that individual.
Mariano?
Okay, can you just point him out and identify an article of clothing he's wearing?
Right here. Which
What
one?
ti-
Mariano?
Yes.
Yes.
And identify an article of clothing he's wearing.
Oh, he's wearing a brown jacket and a brown shirt with little squares.
Thank you. I know that sounds like a silly question.
Yes, I was kind of looking here first.
But we
Yes,
have to get it on the record.
yes.
And just be careful because for the reporter to type everything down, we can't talk over each other,
Okay.
okay?
Yes.
So I'll ask the question and then I'll try not to interrupt you too, okay?
Okay.
All right. So how long have you, you call him JR, how long have you known JR?
Maybe 5 years. I don't know JR like a friendship. It's more like an acquaintance.
Okay,
Okay, more like an acquaintance, but I know that he owns that Volcan, Joe's Volcano. I'm a manager at Lowe's. He went to the store at one time, and made a purchase. I made sure he got great customer service. I myself went ahead and checked him out. And because I had respect for him, because we would go to that club, Pablo and I. I know, so it's not like a friendship, it's an acquaintance.
Okay.
But we never ever, like, we hung out, we never, nothing. It was just an acquaintance. That's it.
And so I'm assuming, did you meet him through?
Through
Volcan?
Volcan, yes, sir.
Okay,
And it just happened that he ended up going to that store where I'm a manager.
just had it.
It just-
Okay. It's a small, it's not. that
Yeah,
big of a-
absolutely.
Okay, and so, when y'all are at Joe's Volcano, you mentioned that you danced and do you recall, did you have any drinks at Joe's Volcano?
Yeah, I probably had two.
And do you recall if, Pablo had? drinks?
Pablo had maybe 3 to 4 drinks, the most. That's the most, because like I said, he'd rather dance than drink.
Okay, so that particular night, if you count the drink that he had at dinner and then the 3 or 4 drinks
Right.
at Joe's Volcano Baton,
That
would
was
have been
it.
about 5 drinks,
Yeah.
roughly. Okay. And so at some point, I guess, at 2 o'clock in the state of Texas, or at least San Antonio, Bexar County, drinking stops. It's just,
That's correct.
State rule. So you've been to Joe's Volcano before,
Yes,
and had you been there around closing time?
yes, yes.
And do you know like a routine that this particular bar does around closing time? Or, well, is it closing time? Do they stay open later or?
Yes,
what?
they stay open later. Yes, they stay open later till it's 3.
Okay, so they don't.
But the
close
last
it-
call is,
Sorry, go ahead.
last call is at 2.
Okay, so they don't close down at 2.
Mm-mm.
They stay open later.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
the drinking, you can't buy any more drinks after 2, and then they pick up drinks, alcohol drinks at 2. Does that sound accurate?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And you've been there around closing time,
Oh,
or
yes,
I keep on saying closing time, stop drinking time.
yes.
And what's the routine that this particular bar does?
So the routine is that they call, last call for alcohol, maybe like 10 minutes till 2, which still gives you the opportunity to go get a drink. Then you come back, and then after that, then they say, that's it. So they come around with a trash can that has wheels. And normally it's either the guys that clean up or the security. So they come around and then they ask you to go ahead and dispense of your drink. And that's what they do.
Okay, and so that's the routine. So this particular night, what do you recall happening around 2 o'clock?
So this particular night, I'm standing here, Pablo's here. His nephew, Carlos, which we call Wedo, is here, and the girlfriend. And I see the gentleman with the trash can, and then I see the security guard coming toward us. And he says, that's it, drinking's over. Pablo did the biggest mistake of doing the last drink and not throwing the beer where that trash can was, but he went ahead and threw it on another trash can. And I saw the security, he got enraged. And shame on me for continuing doing business there, because I saw a lot of incidents happen there.
Okay, well, let's
So
talk about
when I
this.
saw the security guard,
All right, that'll be sustained.
Okay, let me just stop you right there. So on this particular occasion,
Mhm.
let me ask you about that security card. Well, one, you've been there number of times. Had you ever seen this particular security guard there?
No,
Okay, so he didn't know you and you didn't know him?
no,
And so would it be fair to say on other occasions that you're there, and do you go with Pablo or does Pablo go by himself?
no, Pablo and I always would go together, Pablo and I.
Okay. And so on this particular night, do you know if Pablo had ever seen a security guard before?
No, no,
Okay.
no,
So you're unfamiliar with the security guard.
yes,
So you were just stating previously in your testimony that Pablo took a drink and didn't throw it in the trash can that they brought up. but
Right.
Threw it in a different trash can.
right.
and that security guard was unhappy about that. So
He
please
was-
describe this particular occasion of what
Okay,
happened.
so he was in fury. He got furious. I mean, I could see he turned into a monster. And he was gonna attack Pablo. I got in the middle and I went this way. And I said, stop, stop. I said, you don't have to do this. It's uncalled for. You don't have to do this. Just stop. Well, he grabs my arms and he pushes me to the side. The next thing I see is he knocked Pablo down. He knocked him to the floor. And I got frightened. And I started running, looking for JR.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. You made a motion on the stand, and just to make it clear for the record here, you stated that the security guard grabbed you right the arms and moved you out of the way. Did you fall down or
No.
anything? Okay, you were just shoved out of the way. And then what did the security guard, if you can describe it in words, did he grab onto Pablo, or did he
He
push
attacked
Pablo? What
him.
did he do?
He attacked him and knocked him straight to the ground.
Did Pablo say anything to him before that?
Pablo did not have a chance to even wink, I don't think.
Did Pablo swing at the security guard?
He didn't have a chance, no, no.
And
It
did the,
just slammed him to the ground.
the security guard, before you slammed into the ground, did he swing at him or anything?
No, sir. No, sir.
And then when they were on the ground at this time, was Pablo on his stomach or was Pablo on his back?
He was on his back when
And-
I left, because that's all I saw. When he grabbed him and he threw him on the ground and he went over him. And that's when I ran to get help.
Okay,
And I said, my first instinct was, I'm gonna go get JR. He knows us very well. He knows who we are. You know, we don't cause problems. We're regular customers, you know? And let me go get help to let him know what his security guard is doing. I
So-
couldn't find him anywhere.
and so you were looking for JR, the person you knew and he knew you, and you were unable to find him. Did you end up finding anybody that, okay, tell the jury who you end up finding,
I found his son
and where did you find his son at?
outside.
So you had gone all the way outside to get help. Okay, looking for JR.
Yes.
And then what happened after that?
And I told his son, my husband's getting beat by the security guards. Where's your dad? Where's your dad? Your dad knows Pablo. Where is he? And he said, come down, come down. I'm gonna go look for him. Just stay out here. Let me go look for him. And so I waited outside and nobody came. So by the time I went back into Joe's volcano,
Mhm.
Pablo was already standing up. And there were security guards there, but I went up to Pablo and I told Pablo, are you okay? And he just shook his head and he goes, let's go. But nobody pushed him out. Nobody escorted him out. We just both walked out.
And were you walking with anybody else?
I don't recall. It was Pablo and I. It might have been his nephew and the girlfriend, but honestly, I don't recall. But I recall Pablo and I walking out.
And when y'all walked outside, did you stay there or what happened at that point?
So at that point, Pablo's nephew's girlfriend called the city police to make a report.
And did they arrive?
Yes, they did.
Did
They
you have to-
arrived.
How long, did you have to wait long or?
We wait, not really, no, maybe 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And she made her report and then I went ahead and made my report with Pablo.
Now, did you speak? Did you speak to the police that night?
Did I? Yes, I did. Yes.
And then I believe, is it Esperanza or?
Esperanza.
Esperanza, and I believe that her name was sort of changed earlier, but that's the nephew, Carlos's girlfriend.
Carlos' girlfriend, yes.
And she spoke to the police,
Yes.
on her own accord also.
Yes.
Okay. And did you feel what did you do at that point after you spoke to the police? Was anybody arrested that night?
Nobody was arrested. They kind of like didn't give us the attention, like, and you know, I understand you're at a club, they're gonna feel like, oh, these people, you know, things happen out there, and I just didn't feel that they took us serious. And they did it, and then that's when JR and his wife came and said that we were bandit, told Pablo and I
Bandit, what do you?
that we were no longer allowed to go to that club.
Okay.
They came to us and they said, you guys are banned from here. You are no longer to come to this club. And I mean, we're not gonna be aggressive over that. We're like, okay, you know.
Let me just read by real quick with the SAPD. Was it SAPD that showed up?
Yes, it was SAPD.
Did you speak to them in English or Spanish?
I spoke to them in English.
And Pablo, does he speak English or Spanish?
He
or both?
speaks English and he understands English, but he's more comfortable with Spanish.
With Spanish?
Yes.
Okay. So you spoke with the SAPD, but Pablo did not.
No, I think Pablo was more in shock. He was in shock. And it was me who was doing the talking.
And so after speaking with SAPD, what did y'all do at that time?
We went ahead and went home. We went home. We got home. I woke up my oldest daughter and I told her what had happened to us. And my daughter's just she's just very different. And she said, you know what, Pablo, I'm gonna take pictures of you. So she took pictures of Pablo's hands and Pablo's bruising on his face and all these pictures. And she made sure that she took pictures of his hands in the front and the back to make sure that Pablo did not hit anybody or did not do anything.
Once.
Yeah. No problem.
Have it, but Judge, I'm approaching.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna show, you stated that she took some pictures of Pablo that day. I'm showing you state exhibit number 4
Mm-hmm,
and then state exhibit number 5.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know if all these are coming from that day. You can tell
Yes.
me.
Yes.
State exhibit number 6,
Mm-hmm.
state exhibit number 7.
Yes, because we were in the kitchen.
Okay,
Mhm.
state exhibit number 8
Mm-hmm.
and 9.
Right.
And these are photos that were
That
taken
same-
that day.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess you know that they're photos for before he had surgery, right?
Oh, yes.
Because
Yes.
he doesn't have a
before-
scar
Right.
on his stomach, right?
Right, right.
From the surgery that he had a few
Right.
days later. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I'm also going to show you a state exhibit number 3. Do you recall this photo?
I sure do.
And what is this a photo of?
This is a photo of Pablo and JR.
And do you recall how many, or this obviously was before this incident, a
Absolutely, a couple of months before.
couple of months before. So it looks like they're smiling. They're sort of giving this the peace sign or something like that.
Mhm.
So they were at least acquaintances themselves.
Yeah, JR had took one of his vehicles to a mechanic shop,
Mhm.
and Pablo and his brother worked there. And it just happened that they're the ones who went ahead and fixed one of his vehicles. I don't recall if it was a truck or a car, but Pablo had stated to me, and he was like, he stated to me, hey, you know that JR took his vehicle and we end up fixing it for him and da 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 da. So that's how I found out.
Okay.
But there was never any conflict between them. We never had a conflict, ever.
I mean, and so you stated that earlier, that y'all never had a problem there
Never,
yourselves
ever,
with
ever.
staff or with JR?
Never, ever. We were respectful. We respected that place, as well as we wanted to be respected, and we never caused problems. Pablo never caused problems.
Okay, so let's go into the next, well, this happened in the early morning hours of August 20th. Let's talk about later, later in the day of August 20th. Because obviously you go home,
Mhm,
and then I'm assuming you go to sleep and then you wake up.
that's correct.
What, Do you recall how Pablo was feeling the next day?
The next day he was feeling sore. But he wasn't complaining from his stomach. He just felt like body ache.
And did y'all do anything that particular
Yes, we
day?
did.
What did y'all do?
We took my daughter and my grandbaby. We went to the flea market.
Okay.
I went to the flea market. We were out there and we just spent the day at the flea market.
And so, tell me this, did you ever receive a phone call that
Yes,
day?
I did.
And who did you receive a phone call
From
from?
JR.
And so y'all had a discussion on the phone?
Yes,
And did you call him or did he call you?
he called me.
And so when he called you, tell the jury what the conversation was about.
You know, this has been 2 years, so I can't be very. He literally called me to tell me that we had caused this and that Pablo had caused this and that Pablo was he was gonna file charges against Pablo for putting his hands on a peace officer.
And a peace officer, what do you mean by a peace officer?
He just said it was an officer that Pablo had put his hands on. And I said, that's not true. That's not what happened. I said, what happened is that I called them security guards. He used another word. I called them security guards. I said, no, your security guard was the one who initiated this for no reason. Because Pablo just took the last drink and didn't throw it on the trash can that he wanted him to throw it and threw it on another trash can. And that flared everything up. That's what happened. We didn't do anything.
And this is the conversation you're having with.
Yes,
Where you get the defendant in this case, JR.
yes.
And did the defendant ever tell you what he did to Pablo?
No, never. I never in my wildest dreams did I even thought that he was involved.
And you mean involved as in, you saw the video?
I saw this happened 2 years ago. I didn't see the video till today because I could not get myself to see it.
And I actually showed you the video
You
for the
showed
first
it to
time.
me for the first time.
This morning.
Yes, sir.
And you were able to identify JR in that,
Yes,
and that you saw him put his knees into Pablo's stomach area.
and I never ever thought that he was involved.
Did the defendant in this case, during this phone conversation the next day, tell you that he did that to Pablo?
No, he did not. He told me someone else did it. He told me Pablo's nephew's friends did this, and I don't know where he was coming from with this because there was nobody there except for Pablo, myself, Carlos, his girlfriend, and then there was one more friend that was there. So what he was telling me, I don't know where he was coming from.
And you saw the video
Yes,
of his nephew holding his girlfriend.
they're on the back because, well, later she tells me it was so brutal. She couldn't help it.
And I guess at the time of this phone call, did the defendant seem like he was trying to be helpful to you
Yes.
at this time during?
Helpful and also threatening me that he was gonna file charges
Against who?
against Pablo and me for putting our hands on the peace officer. But I said, no, the only thing that I did was put my hands this way so he wouldn't attack Pablo. That's all I did.
Mhm.
But he pushed me out of the way and went straight to Pablo and just knocked him down to the ground.
And during this conversation, at this time, this was the next day, this video that the jury has already seen and that you saw this morning, and it's state exhibit number 2, state exhibit number 2. And I'm gonna go ahead and just show it to you, just briefly, just a portion of it, just to make sure we're talking about the same video since it'll be on the record. State exhibit number 2. that's the video that we're speaking of, State Exhibit number 2, that you saw this morning for the first time. And this video, during this phone call that you had with the defendant in this case, did you have possession of this video, or were you aware of this video at that time?
No, I did not have possession. I was not aware of that video.
And in fact, do you recall when you became aware of this video, and even became in possession of this video?
I would say a good 6 weeks later.
So weeks after this event
Oh,
happened.
yes, weeks later, yes.
Do you know who made this video?
I don't know who made that video, but that video was sent to Esperanza without her even expecting it. And that's when Esperanza called me and said, Tina, someone just sent me this video and guess who did this to Pablo?
Okay, and so somebody, some individual you don't know, made that video and sent it to Esperanza, and subsequently she sent it to you, then you turned it over to the police, is that correct, later
That's
on?
correct, that's correct.
And so during this conversation that you had with the defendant, the video, you were unaware of it,
Right,
and the conversation was somewhat threatening to you, but then at the same time, was it, hey, help me out, I'll help you out?
mhm, yes, it was, yes.
And at any time, does he talk about things being stolen from him?
Yeah, he came out with some stuff saying that somebody had stole the security guard radio, and I don't know, radio, and I don't know what else, but he came up with some things that they had been stolen from him, and making it sound like the group that we were with were the ones who did it, but we were not with any group or any people that he was trying to affiliate us with. I didn't know what he was talking about.
Did he ever mention to you that he felt that like his life was in danger, the defendant?
Yeah, he said something about a black suburban or someone that threatened him, and he was trying to affiliate
may
those
we
people
approach?
with us.
Objection.
Hold on one second.
Yes, you may approach. Okay, State, if you'll ask your next question.
Now, after you had this phone conversation, that was on the actual day that it happened, just later on in the day, you're at the flea market or you're somewhere else.
Yes,
Then, that phone conversation obviously ends at some point.
yes.
Let's talk about the surgery that Pablo had. At some point, did you take him to the hospital?
Yes,
What day, what day was it that you took him to the hospital?
the next day on Monday, I
Monday.
took him to the emergency room.
And I was gonna, that day, if it was the 20th on Sunday, the 21st would be
21st.
Monday, is that
Yes,
right?
Yes,
And so when you took him to the ER, why did you end up taking him to the ER on Monday?
because Pablo was telling me that he was hurting very bad from his eye
Mhm.
socket, and he was feeling very bad. So I said, you know what, let me take you to the emergency room and get you checked out to make sure you're okay. So I took him, and they rendered aid, of course, and they gave him some muscle relaxers, I recall. And that was Monday. Then they released him, and then we went home. And then Tuesday morning, I would say about 11 a.m., Pablo said, "Oh, my stomach hurts a lot. I can't stand my pain." Well, it just happened that St. Luke's called me. It just happened that way and asked me, "How is Pablo doing?" And I said, "Well, as a matter of fact," I said, "he's just complaining that his stomach hurts." And she said, "You know what? Bring him back in." So I took him back in. And they took him to go get x-rays. And then I remember it was a female doctor, and she comes out and she says, "We're rushing him to have an emergency surgery, and we're gonna transfer him to North Baptist. And they're waiting for him there. So you go in your vehicle, we're gonna transfer him in an ambulance, and we're gonna rush him over there, and the surgeon will be waiting for him." So by the time that I got to the hospital, Pablo was already going into surgery.
going into surgery.
Yes.
And a doctor came in that performed the surgeries on your husband and spoke about that. So I'm not gonna go into details of what you may know or may not know, but you know that he went into surgery for his stomach area, is that right?
That is correct.
And then after that surgery, did he actually have another surgery later on?
Yes, actually, Pablo stayed in the hospital for 25 days on the first surgery. Then he was released and they released him to come back home. And he was home for maybe 6 days, 7 days. But Pablo was very sick. He was very sick. So I had to rush him again to the emergency room. And when I rushed him again to the emergency room, I took him to the same one, North Baptist. And they had to do a second emergency surgery because there was more damage to his intestines. And that was leaking fluids, and which was it was coming out of his mouth at home. That's how bad it was.
So that's pretty traumatic. I mean, and I know that's
It was
probably
bad.
traumatic for yourself
Yes.
and Pablo especially. But thank you for explaining that to the jury. Now, let me ask you a few other questions about this. Did you ever go back to Joe's Volcano after this?
No,
Now,
ever.
you did have a conversation with JR, or the defendant in this case, on the telephone.
Yes,
And are you aware if that was recorded or not
I
recorded?
was not aware of any of that. I thought it was just a conversation. I was not aware it was being recorded.
And did you also have text messages that you exchanged with him?
Yes, I do.
And I showed you I'm gonna show you what's been marked state.
Or do you want me to see it first? You want to show me?
Well, you can show it right now.
Okay, good.
Judge, I'm gonna turn over state exhibit number 14 to defense.
Mhm.
There's some discovery that we had previously given.
May I just look at it for a moment?
Yes.
Okay, proceed, Judge.
Yes.
I'll show you what's the marked state exhibit number 14. Can you just take a look through those and tell me if you can identify that? just go ahead and flip through the page.
Yes.
Go ahead and look at it.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. Now, what I want to ask you about this is one, these are,
I do have an objection to State's Exhibit 14.
Yes,
Can I approach?
let's do
My
that.
objection is hearsay objection. I can describe it to the court.
All right, let me just view this for a moment. All right, so what I'll do is I'll let you, lay foundations and then I can hear
Okay,
objections.
that's probably.
now, state exhibit number 14. One, what, we know that we talked about text messages,
Right.
but these are photos, is that correct?
Yes,
And are these what we would call like screenshots?
yes, they are.
Where are these screenshots from?
My phone.
Your phone?
Yes,
And there's roughly, this is a packet, but there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 pages that are actually printed out. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And these are screenshots that you took from your own phone.
Yes, I did.
And are these messages that, some of these messages are something that you sent out?
That's correct.
And who is sending a response or having a conversation with you through text?
JR was.
The defendant in this case?
Yes,
And so all these, this is a number that he had contacted you at,
yes, sir.
and you spoke about a phone conversation that y'all had,
Yes, sir.
that it came from this number.
Yes, sir.
And so this would be correspondence with the defendant.
Yes, it is.
At this time, Your Honor, I believe this, the foundation has been set, state would be offering state exhibit number 14 into evidence, and we have tendered to defense for any objections.
And I object on the basis of hearsay. Some of the statements are hearsay, some of them are, I guess, is the best way to describe it for the court. So.
All right, so, ladies and gentlemen, if I can have you step outside for a moment, please remember my previous instructions. All right, to the jury. All right, everyone, please be seated. All right, state, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor, and just addressing state exhibit number 14, I know outside the presence, certain things, I would be asking to enter it, but I know that we're gonna do some redactions, and I'd
Yes.
like to enter that at later times, it's not to cause the court to be on break too long.
All right.
I have no objection to that,
All
as we
right.
discussed.
Thank you.
But I'm gonna go ahead and use this state exhibit.
Yes, so state exhibit number 14 is admitted with redactions as previously discussed.
Thank you. Now this is Jimenez. I know that these are text messages that you received from the defendant, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you spoke about certain things that the defendant had spoken to you about, like the nephew of Pablo had caused the problems.
That's what he stated.
And that's where he had sent some text messages in reflection of that, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and that's seen in these text messages, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, you can review your portion, but please just don't read it out loud to the jury. But what I'm gonna ask you, did you ever ask the defendant for a video from his establishment of about how Pablo was involved in this altercation with his security guard?
Yes, I did.
Did you ever receive any videos from the defendant regarding Pablo's involvement or any videos from him?
I never received anything.
And throughout this conversation that you have, this is over a period of days, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And it starts on, what day does it start on?
August 20th.
So
The
that's,
Sunday, the next day.
so
Well, that same day.
same
yes,
day later
on.
okay, and it has the reflection of some times.
Yes,
So roughly, this depiction says, if I'm reading that correctly, is that 4:12 p.m.
that is correct.
on August 20th?
Yes,
Okay. And you do have some conversations with him about certain things, but then you also go into the next day on Monday, is that correct?
yes,
August 21st?
yes, sir.
He actually, who texted who first?
He texted me.
And what did he text you? You can read that. This portion.
How are you this morning? Call me when you are able.
So that's what he sent to you.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. you did respond to him, and not reading this directly, but what did you respond to him?
Objection, hearsay.
Yeah, that'll be, are you asking her to read from the?
I'm not asking you to read it.
He's asking her to state what she told him, which would be hearsay.
Not if she's remembering it, Judge, and she can refresh her memory.
All right,
But it's still a statement made outside. It's still a statement made outside the record. It's still hearsay, Judge. It's her own statement is hearsay.
all right, that objection will be overruled. You're not allowed to read from that document.
So,
I remember I told him, I'm doing the best I can. I said, my concern right now is Pablo. Pablo is not doing well.
all right. And he does respond to you in portions. He talks about people at his establishment. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And he talks about how about a security guard.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
there's this portion right here that he was beat up real bad.
Yes, that's what he stated. He said, it's bad at my end as well. He goes, my security guard has been beaten very bad.
Now, have you seen any pictures of the security guard?
Never,
Did you ever see any hospital bills or anything coming from security guard?
never,
Or any, for that matter, anybody coming from Joe's Volcano or his employees or himself?
never.
And then at one portion, he speaks to you about if you're gonna speak to an attorney.
Yes.
And you can look at this and tell me, what does he say about the attorney?
He said, let me see. He said if I was looking for an attorney and if I was gonna go on, then he was gonna do the same thing. And I said, right now, my concern is Pablo's. That's my concern right now.
And then as you proceed through these days, it goes into Tuesday and also Tuesday, August 22nd. Does he text you?
Yes, he does.
And at what time?
He texted me at about 6:24 and 8:42 a.m. in the morning. That's when he told me to call him.
Oh, sorry, right here. And I know I'm moving this back and forth,
Uh-huh.
but let's, in particular, Tuesday, August 22nd.
22nd.
What time did he text you?
At 8:42 a.m.
And then doesn't seem like there's any response from you.
No,
And then on Wednesday, August 23rd, do you receive another text?
yes, I did.
And what was that text from?
He wanted to meet up. He wanted us to meet somewhere.
And let me ask you this, did you ever agree to meet with him?
Never, ever. No,
Did you ever meet with him in person after this event?
no, I never did.
And now, speaking of August 22nd, August 23rd, is that when you testified previously that Pablo was having the surgery?
That's correct.
And do you ever mention that to him in these texts?
Yes, I did.
And he asked about that surgery.
Yes, he did.
And does he go into any other information about what happened during this assault that happened on Pablo?
Oh, he said that there was a lot of rumors and there was a lot of lies going on. And I really was not up to it. And I said, Pablo's situation is very serious. It's very serious. I said, you don't imagine how serious this is.
And did he ask a question about the operation itself?
Yes, he did.
And did you ever respond to him about why he was having the operation?
I told him because he was hit in the stomach and they tore his intestines.
And in different portions in here, did you ever ask for like the camera or any camera views or anything that was at his establishment?
Yes, I pleaded and I said, can I please, I'll go by myself. Can I please see camera with you? I want to know how this happened to Pablo. I want to see camera.
Now, you reviewed all these text messages. At any time did the defendant ever say that he touched Pablo at all?
Never.
In fact, it wasn't until you saw that video that you
Exactly.
knew that the defendant had kneed your husband in the stomach.
Yes, sir.
We'll pass it, Michelle.
Defense,
Good afternoon. My name is Larry Bloomquist. I represent Mariano Rendon. We've never met before today. Is that fair to say?
Never.
Okay. So what time did you finish your dinner? Let me back up. Let's start on that day or let me back up before that. So the times you've been going to the club for about how many years?
Oh, I say about a little over 5 years.
Okay. So, and that was someplace you frequently went, like about once a week, is that fair to say?
Yeah, maybe not once a week, maybe once or twice a month.
Okay, once or twice a month. And and during that period of time, you went there because you enjoyed you enjoyed the club, you enjoyed the music and the way you were treated there, correct?
Exactly.
And during the time that you were there, you had gotten to know JR a little bit, as like you said, an acquaintance, not a friend,
Right,
but an acquaintance, somebody that you would see there because you were there quite often.
correct.
And the day of the incident, let's talk about that. So what was Pablo doing in the hours before you guys went to dinner? What time did you go to dinner at?
Pablo and I went to dinner with our children about 9:30.
And in the hours before that, what were you guys doing?
Pablo works. Pablo works 6 days a week and he works from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay,
So he works.
okay.
He's only off on Sundays.
All right. So then he would have worked, and then after work, he would have cleaned up and you guys would have went to the restaurant.
That is correct.
Okay. And then when you arrived there, you said that Carlos Rodriguez and Esperanza arrived about 20 minutes or 30 minutes after you
About
arrived.
30 minutes after, yes.
Did you know they were going to be there before, or did you just
No,
end up?
we didn't know. No,
And there was another gentleman with them, and what was his name?
I don't know him. If I see him, I know who he is, but I really don't know him by name.
And do you know where Carlos lives? What?
Do I know where Carlos lives?
Uh-huh.
Yes, I know where Carlos
Where does
lives.
Carlos live?
I don't know his physical address,
No.
but he lives here in San Antonio.
Okay. And does Esperanza live with him?
Yes, they have 2 babies. They're going on their second baby already.
And this other gentleman, you don't know where he lives? Okay. And you don't even remember his name at all?
No.
And we talked about it, I think, earlier with the margarita and him having about 4 drinks.
Yeah.
So about 5 drinks in total.
Yeah, and I can't even say full drinks because Pablo, like I said, Pablo is a dancer.
Yeah.
And by the time we would come back, his beer would be hot. He'll throw it away and go get another one.
But if he testified earlier that he had 5 drinks, you
Maybe-
wouldn't
maybe.
disagree with that. How did JR have how did he have your phone number? Do you know?
How did JR have my phone number? I think it was in reference. I really don't recall.
Did you sometimes used to call there to make reservations and things like that?
Never, ever.
So at the time that this incident occurred, you admit that Pablo was requested to put his beer into the trash can, correct?
Right.
And he's not doing what he's being told to do. He's not putting the beer into the trash can, correct?
No, he did. He
Well-
just didn't put it in the trash can that they wanted him to put it, but he did put it in the trash can.
But even after they told him that he wasn't able to drink, he continued to drink, correct?
He took his last drink and threw it in the trash,
But he did that after he was told by the security to put it away, correct?
right?
And in fact, when he put it down, he didn't just put it down, he actually slammed the bottle into the trash can. Isn't that correct?
That is not correct. That is not his demeanor.
Just answer my questions, please. About how long after at that point, and isn't it true that the security officer asked him multiple times to give up the beer? Isn't that correct?
That is incorrect.
And at some point, if witnesses saw Carlos swinging at the security officer, do you disagree with that?
I totally disagree with that.
And I think you said that at some point, when you realized he was starting to get physical between the security officer and Pablo, you stood between him for a brief moment, correct?
What was that? Repeat that again?
So when you realized he was becoming physical between Pablo and the security officer, you said that you stood between them for a brief moment, correct?
Yes,
And then after that, the security officer grabbed you by the arms and pushed you aside.
that is correct.
And then after that, you immediately left to go to try to find JR.
That is correct. When I saw Pablo on the ground.
Okay. So you might not have been there during part of this conversation while you're going out, or of this confrontation while you're going out to get JR. I think you said you went all the way outside. Is that
Yes, I
correct?
did.
Okay. At the time that this occurred, did you see Esperanza trying to get involved in the altercation?
No, I did not.
And it's possible that happened while you were gone. Is that correct?
I couldn't tell you. I wasn't there.
And if witnesses saw Pablo punching at the security officer, do you disagree with that?
Absolutely, I disagree.
During the time that you were there, but there was a portion where you were not there, correct?
That is correct.
And we see on the video that Pablo is actually struggling with the police officer, correct? The police officers, just for the video, you've seen that the police officer's on top of Pablo, and Pablo is, I guess, on his back and trying to move to his stomach. Is that correct?
Yeah, he couldn't breathe.
And if at some point, so you're unaware of you're unaware of anybody taking the radio from the security officer,
I am unaware of any of that.
and you're unaware of that radio leaving the premises.
I have no idea. No, I'm unaware of any of that.
We have a moment.
Yes.
But you're aware in this conversation that you had with JR in this text conversation that he tells you multiple times that the security officer was injured.
That's what he stated.
That's what he stated. I'll pass the witness.
Just very briefly, I believe the defense counsel may have misspoken, but he stated the police officer was on top of Pablo. You saw the video, that was a security guard, is that correct?
That is correct.
And I wanted to ask you briefly about the medical, do you have medical bills associated with Pablo?
We have,
Objection,
yes,
relevance.
we have many medical bills.
Objection,
Just 1 second.
relevance.
What's the relevance?
Your Honor, this shows the magnitude of the injury that was sustained, the serious bodily injury to the victim in this case.
It's irrelevant, Your Honor.
All right, that objection will be overruled.
You can answer the question about medical bills.
Yes, we have in the thousands of medical bills. He had 2 major surgeries. Like I said, the first time he was there 25 days. The second time he was there about another 25 days. So yes, we have tons of medical bills.
Thank you very much, Pastor.
Any further questions?
And you've not filed any kind of civil suit in this case, correct?
A civil suit? No, I have not.
I have nothing.
No further questions, Your Honor. May this witness be released?
All right, is this witness excused or subject for recall?
Subject to recall, Your Honor.
All right, the rule has been invoked. You're not allowed to discuss your testimony with anyone during the pendency of this trial. You're not allowed to view anything about this trial. Just make sure you're available if either side wishes to recall you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, if you'll remove that small microphone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to recess for today.